Buggers, another game week is upon us. It is coming thick and fast at this time of year. We just finished with the game week yesterday, and tomorrow we've got another one. Please, guys, if you haven't already changed your team or started thinking about your team, tomorrow is the deadline. Make sure that you guys are making those transfers and getting ready ahead of that new deadline day stream. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at what happened in game week 4. And is it time to sell Salah? I am not sure, but let's take a look. We'll go through the team and then reveal at the end whether or not that's something or a move that you guys should be making. And looking ahead, game week 5 is upon us. Boys, if you have not yet, please consider giving this channel a subscribe, like the video, turn on some notifications. There is so much more content to come. I've really enjoyed starting this and would really love to continue making these videos for you guys. So please consider giving a subscribe. Game week 4 is done. And I think this might be one of the greatest game weeks that we've ever seen in FPL. Certainly in my, 15 years of playing this game, I've not quite seen a game week like it, where so many different things happened. We've had records broken, Salah blanking in a 9-0 win against Bournemouth, Haaland with a hat-trick, but then Kane very quickly following up with the brace. And it's left us with as managers with a lot to consider ahead of this game week 5 deadline. Again, as mentioned, remember that the deadline is tomorrow. Looking ahead, I'm just going to do a quick recap of the previous game week. We obviously did do the review yesterday if you guys want to check out that video in full. 82 points. We saw a monumental rise in rank from 1.1 million, I think it was 1.1, 1.3 million, all the way up to 400k in a single game week. I must admit, if I'd kept Diaz in the team, we would have been looking at over 100,000 ranks, 100 points. But in general, this is looking like a great game week for me. At the back, we had my boy Hendo. This guy's penalty saving is on another level. I think he saved 3 in 5 penalties now. So it's looking like if there's a penalty, he might be getting some points. Perisic at the back, he looked very good again. Should have assisted again. Should have assisted Kane with the penalty. Obviously, he managed to get the ball in. Kane won the handball. And Kane failed to score. My boy Hendo with the absolute clutch save. Couldn't help Nottingham Forest, but certainly for my team, that was awesome. Alexander-Arnold at the end. I'm so happy I kept hold of the boy. I was considering very much to let him go to try and free up the funds and potentially get De Bruyne in the team. I was just chicken. I think this guy scores 200 points a season. It's obvious. The fact that he's still priced at 7.5 million is mad. So I'm very glad I kept him. Trippier, I think he was relatively unlucky. They were poor against Wolves. And in general, Trippier is looking like a great option for the future. So I'm very glad I had him. Obviously, the Zinchenko injury meant that I needed to utilize the bench. It was great to have an option in place like Trippier, which is a very strong replacement for Zinchenko or any position in the team. So I'm very glad that I was able to fit in a couple of these premium defenders that could look after some of the other guys in the team. Looking to the midfield, Gundogan, I think in general, Man City midfielders are very difficult to predict. It's just typical Pep roulette. And for us as managers, we've just got to deal with the fact that they are going to get rotated and you're going to have to gamble on trying to get the right one. He was rested and managed to get an assist in the game. I'm hoping what that means is that he's going to play against Forest on Wednesday. So that means, looking ahead, that I'm quite happy to own Gundogan. Rodrigo Leeds looked poor against Brighton. It didn't look like it was going to be a high-scoring game. But in general, he could have probably gotten a little bit more from the game. But Brighton's a solid side. Looking ahead to his fixture, it's probably good to keep him. And Leeds' fixtures are just fantastic. They've just got a great run in. Very happy to own Rodrigo. Salah, we've mentioned it. 18 different opportunities to score a goal or an assist and didn't get a single one. Probably the most clutch thing about the entire game week from my perspective was to captain Haaland and keep the vice-captain armband on Salah. Is it time to sell Salah? Keep it tuned until the end, and we'll give you a reason as to whether or not this is a good move to be making. Martinelli, he was relatively unlucky against Fulham. Fulham parked the bus completely. So, in general, that's not probably a good game to be judging him by. But he looks like a fantastic option going forward. Saka was probably unlucky to score, but if I was a Saka owner now, it may be time to consider downgrading him to Martinelli to free up some of those funds to be able to fund some of those higher owned players. It's up to you guys, managers, and your own team whether or not this makes sense, but that is certainly a consideration you can look at. Looking ahead, Haaland, 34 points, a hat-trick. Can't have asked for more. Obviously, the Kane brace does hurt. I think I was less than 500k on the game week rank until the Kane brace was considered. But in general, he is looking like a fantastic option. Is he going to get rested on Wednesday? It's looking incredibly likely. So we just need to be careful. Don't necessarily just jump on this bandwagon that Haaland is perma-captain. We saw Pep's comments that if he is going to play back-to-back games, these 3-day breaks, that he is going to get rested and Alvarez is going to play. So it's something to consider ahead of the next game, and probably worth taking a look at the team news ahead of the conference. We are going to be doing a deadline day stream tomorrow. So worth checking in and tuning in on that so that we can share some of the latest news for you guys ahead of the game week and answer some of your questions. Gabriel Jesus, he's owned by more than 80% of the managers in the game. It makes him almost pointless in terms of the points he scored because everybody in the team is going to get that. So it's either you captain in and start to get the double points on him, but otherwise there's nothing really to say about Jesus. He looked good again, but everybody owns him. Tony, Brentford looked off, bad game. Tony's got some great fixtures going forward, so I wouldn't be too despondent as a Tony owner that he is worth selling now. Certainly me from wildcarding him into the team. He has got some great fixtures coming up, and really he was a placeholder for Nunez when he comes back. Not this game week, not the next game week, but in the third game week from now, Nunez starts to become an option. He's had a couple of price falls. They're quite easy to fit into the team, falling in less than 9 million. On the bench, Daddy Ward, 1 point again. What did I tell you? Part of the reason why I wildcarded was I just saw a string of 1-pointers. That was an 8-point gain, moving from Henderson on from Ward. Zinchenko with a last-minute injury that I'm a little bit sad that I didn't pick up on. He did celebrate on the touchline, so does that mean that he's going to be available for the next couple of games? I think he's key. He's like a Perisic for Arsenal. They're an absolute must-own player, so he's not going to go anywhere in my team. And I'm going to just ride out these injuries, even if he doesn't play again on, I think they're playing Wednesday. I might be wrong. But from my perspective, I'm going to start him. If he doesn't start, that means he's not going to come off the bench. We'll probably have a Trippier on as a replacement. There's some strong options on my bench, so I'm not too sad about that. Maybe we'll consider that in terms of the transfer. Andreas from Fulham looked lively again. Again, they parked the bus, so not really much opportunity for him. They play Brighton Albion next. There could be some points in them for there. And then Williams on the bench. Damn. I saw Forest have signed some more players today, and they're in the market for Serge Aurier. Does that mean that Williams is going to lose his place? I don't know. Keep watching that space. There is Emerson at West Ham as a 4.0 replacement. So if you guys are in the market for a cheap defender, it might be worth considering Emerson from West Ham, as he might be guaranteed to start in a better team and hasn't got that rotation risk that Williams has got with him. Moving on, we are looking ahead to the next game week, and we're just going to go through each of the positions in the team so we can clarify what they are, why I've made the decisions. So starting at the back, we've got Henderson. It's probably the toughest fixture that Nottingham Forest could have asked for. Man City away. However, if you take a look at Henderson and how he's been performing, we can see that he's managed to get points in every single game despite Forest not having kept one clean sheet yet. So me as a Henderson owner, I'm not looking towards the fixtures to say, is this the best chance for Forest to keep a clean sheet? And rather, I'm looking at, is this the best chance for save points? And at this point, my boy has saved 3 out of 5 penalties. So is there a penalty opportunity? There's no downside if they score the penalty against him, but there isn't a huge upside if he's able to save the penalty. And at this point, anybody could be taking a penalty against Henderson, and you could back him saving a penalty, as mad as that is to say. It's him or Ward. Ward is looking terrible. Leicester's looking terrible. So I think from my perspective, it makes the most sense to keep Henderson in there at the goalkeeping position. Moving on to the defense, Alexander-Arnold. He was the most transferred out player of Game Week 4. We've got so many managers that are very much regretting that decision. And as I mentioned in the intro to this particular video, Alexander-Arnold is a 200-point a season machine. This man is certainly underpriced and just can't leave your side. The only other player that I think of, if you take a look at my team there, that I am still missing is Reece James. He was in my draft before I pulled the wild card. And from my perspective, the reason why I moved him out of the team was because he was playing at that left centre-back role. He's been bombing up and down the wing with Loftus-Cheek interchangeably. And in fact, he's probably looking even more dangerous in the position that he's at. It's almost this elbow-type pivot that Chelsea is busy playing, and means that Reece James may be as essential as we initially thought. He's not in my team at the moment. He's certainly in my thoughts to transfer in, but definitely something that you guys should be considering if you are looking to move on from some of the other players. Something that's worth thinking about is Cancelo down to, say, a Reece James, a Perisic, a Zinchenko. He's got another one-pointer. He's really not performing this season, and his underlying stats are all looking down at this stage. Having said that, on a predictive perspective, he is looking like he's going to score plenty of points, but that's just an algorithm based on previous seasons and some of the opponents that he's played. Is it time to move on from Cancelo? From my perspective, if it's a move that you can make without any other fires in your team, it may be worth considering and then banking some of that money going into and upgrading some of the rest of your team. Some interesting talking points there. Moving on, we've got Zinchenko in the heart of my defense. As mentioned, Zinchenko is injured. It was, from all reports, a sprained knee that they were looking at. Sprained knee does sound pretty hectic, but they mentioned that it was a minor injury. A lot of the news articles seem to be pointing towards him missing the game week fixture and the midweek fixture at least, and moving on to coming to play on the weekend fixture. I don't think I'm going to move him on. I think I am going to play him. If he doesn't play, he's most likely going to be rested. They're not likely to get off the bench, so you're not looking at a 20-minute substitution. So really something that worth considering as managers who are owning Zinchenko is to keep hold of him, just considering the potential that he has if he does start, but also if he doesn't start, he's not likely to come on. Perisic, dude, how good is Perisic looking? He is looking like Alexander-Arnold on steroids, in fact. He's taking corners with both feet. He is the furthermost forward player on that left-hand flank over and over and over again, playing further ahead than Son. Son is almost doing the running work, while Perisic is playing almost that Cancelo of last season role. Everything is going through him. He is the creator. He should have gotten an assist for Harry Kane's penalty. Harry Kane obviously missing that, and he came off early. I think that with the minutes being managed, you're going to see Perisic starting most games, and even at 70 minutes, he's an absolute must-own, and we're going to see tons of double-digit hauls, even if Tottenham score. So I'm very happy to have him in my team, and from a wildcard perspective, a lot of it was to try and chase some of that team value so that it was possible to have all of these players before they became unattainable. Very happy to be a Perisic owner as it stands, and he's going nowhere in the team. Moving on to the midfielders, and we've got some favorable fixtures almost across the board. Frankie Lampard at Everton. I hate to say it, between him, Steven Gerrard, and David Moyes and our boy Brendan Rodgers, we could see one of these absolute top managers have to pack their bags after being asked to leave the building by their board and being fired, which is insane to think of if you think the pedigree of the managers that we're talking about, and moreover the pedigree of the teams that they represent. But really, all of them have gotten off to such a bad start, and us as managers, we should be targeting Everton, West Ham, Leicester, and Aston Villa as teams to be targeting, because they just have looked so poor. So Rodriguez against Everton, it's an elite side full of running, full of energy, full of pressure, making the opponent make the mistake. Rodrigo leading the line, so the midfielder playing out of position in a forward position. He is the highest point scorer in the game as it stands, and there's nothing to say that he's not going to score many against Everton. We've then got Gundogan in the defense against Notts. As mentioned in the review, Gundogan was rested over the weekend, and I think that means that he's almost certain to start. It's Pep Roulette. You can't be certain of anything. But Gundogan starting against Forest, I think, is a fantastic option. And I'm very happy to be owning Gundogan ahead of this fixture. I think we could get some nice returns here. Part of my thinking is if Gundogan does continue to get rotated, there is an option to move him onto an 8 million midfielder. I would hate to do it because part of my reasoning to go with Gundogan was to move some funds around and allow me to have a bench option that could come on, like, for example, the Zinchenko injury. But the option is there if I need it to move on to that 8 million midfielder Diaz. He looked electric against Bournemouth. So really worth thinking about going into the next game. There's also Pascal Gross at Brighton to consider, downgrading him and potentially using that funds to move up to Nunez, as we'll see later on in the team selection. Moving on, as mentioned, Stevie G, Aston Villa, they're not looking great. They're looking like a side to be targeted. They're in disarray. And you've got to think from a board's perspective, a squad as strong as Villa, with the investment that they're making and languishing so far down the table, is it time to make an early move and get rid of Steven Gerrard and move on to a, let's say, more well-known manager in the Premier League? Obviously, Stevie G did very well in the Scottish division, but is he out of his depth in this Aston Villa side? I'm not sure. It could mean some fantastic points for Arsenal. It's not a Fulham that's going to park the bus and they're going to struggle to break them down. Aston Villa is trying to attack. They're trying to score the points. It leaves them completely vulnerable in defense. And if you look at the pace that Gabriel and Jesus offers on the attacking front for Arsenal, it could really be a high-scoring game. Martinelli seems to be a great option in that position. Captain on Salah. Now, as the title of this video suggests, there's a huge consideration for us as managers, and I think Salah is the most transferred out player of the game week. I'm going to leave it till the end of the video till I reveal my decision, but I'd just like to point out that over the last 2 game weeks, the most transferred out player ends up being the player that hurts our managers the most. This week it's Salah. Last week it was Alexander-Arnold. Is it going to be a recurrence of this theme of managers selling the player that ends up scoring the most points? Stick around and you'll see whether or not it makes sense to sell Salah. Moving on to the forwards, we've got Tony up front with the game against Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace look great. Zaha obviously is out, and despite that, they managed to put on a flippin' great show against Man City. Obviously, Haaland came out and scored that hat-trick, but they were 2-0 up before City started to put on an absolute masterclass of a performance. And we might see something similar again. So I'm a bit worried for Brentford when it comes to Crystal Palace. But in saying that, from a scoring opportunity perspective, Crystal Palace is an attacking side. So it's not a side that's going to play back, play resolute, park the bus, and you don't see many goals or potentially only 1 goal. It could be a bit of a goal fest against Brentford, which means that Tony could certainly benefit. Happy to be keeping Tony at this stage. Gabriel Jesus, we've spoken about him. He's owned by more than 82% of the game. Everybody's got him. Unless you're captaining him, you're not really going to get gains in rank. So he's not really worth talking about, except that in no way or form, if you don't own him, should you not own him. And if you do own him, you should not be selling him. He will hurt you if he scores. But moreover, he just looks so dangerous and is looking like one of the best picks in the game. So if you're considering selling Jesus, don't do it. If you don't own him, where have you been? Really, he is somebody that should be in your side. Haaland, how good is Haaland looking? If he starts, he's going to score. So the only question mark that we've got as managers, at least there's 2 questions that we could be answering. Is Kane going to be scoring or outscoring Haaland in these next few game weeks, just considering the amount of minutes that Kane is going to be getting ahead of Haaland? However, I must say, everything in the City attack seems to be directed towards Haaland and getting him the ball, which means that as an owner of Haaland, I'm very happy to be watching these City games because everything is just going towards him and he's going to be scoring goals. So is it worth thinking that because he's getting less minutes than Kane, to weigh up whether or not we think that over the long run, Kane is going to be scoring most points versus the Haaland? I know many people sold Kane to Haaland or Holland to Kane. And it probably ended up being a bit of a sideways move with them both scoring well. Hat-trick for Holland and a brace for Kane. It's something that we should be considering as managers. I think that he is probably going to be rested in this midweek game after Pep's comments, but let's wait and see from the comments from the manager himself before we make a move there. Looking ahead to the bench, not much to write home about. We've got Ward in goal. He's a playing 4.0 keeper. It's the only reason he's still in my side. There is a thought to potentially move him down to Iverson. Iverson has dropped 1.1 in value, so he is the cheaper option. And at some point, they might need to make a decision about Ward. He isn't looking great. Potentially, Iverson becomes the playing keeper, in which case Iverson is by far the best cheap goalkeeper option in the game. Andreas on the bench. Fulham are looking lively. Brighton is a game where they attack a lot. Could be a lot of points in it for Andreas. Trippier on the bench. He's there in case Zinchenko isn't going to play. Liverpool is a very tough fixture, but they haven't looked so good at the back. And potentially there could be some attacking returns from Trippier. Ideally, I wouldn't want to be playing Trippier this week, but he is there as cover for Zinchenko if needed. And lastly, Williams, we've spoken about this Man City game and just how tough it's going to be. So he's not going to play unless there's some serious troubles in the team. And finally, we're going to be looking ahead to the transfers for game week 5. And the question of the video, and probably the question on every single manager's mind, is should we be selling Salah, considering that there was 9 goals against Bournemouth and Salah blanked, which, I mean, it must be the biggest statistical anomaly of all time from an FPL perspective. Having looked at all of the models and the fact that he is Mohamed Salah, the answer should resolutely be no, you shouldn't be selling him. Experienced managers will have seen this before. There's tons of examples of this where a player might blank in a couple of games and then come back to score 3, even 5 goals. If we look back at previous seasons, Aguero and Suarez are the ones that immediately pop to mind. If you're selling Salah this week, it may be at your own peril. We've seen it before. All the managers dropped off of Alexander-Arnold and he scored 17 points. Mo Salah has got a hat-trick in him. He had the most touches in the box in that 9-0 win. He had a number of opportunities spurned, and it's just a matter of time until he comes back in form. He may be the best player in the Premier League. I mean, I know Holland is there, but Holland's minutes are going to get managed. I think without a shadow of a doubt, Salah is probably the best option for captaincy this week, and therefore should not be in your consideration to be selling. Anybody who's selling Salah, do it at your own peril. I would strongly advise against this. For my own team, because I played the wild card, I'm only considering one transfer this week, and that is potentially to move on Zinchenko, depending on the extent of his injury. If he's looking to play on the weekend, then there's no need for me to look at that transfer. Bank a transfer, have to, and be able to make some decisions going into game week 6. The major thing that we need to be thinking about is, from a fantasy Premier League, we're in a weird place where so many managers don't even have transfers to make or have got luxury moves like moving a player on the bench to a different bench player, or as we've seen with some of our content creators that are doing phenomenally well, some of them have burnt transfer after transfer, so just not making transfers. I think this is partly due to the fact that the defenders have been priced so low this year that it's so easy to make a fantastic squad full of premiums that there's just no need to make any moves. I think after game week 6, the fixtures start to turn, and we're going to see a division between managers in terms of who to pick. So keep that in mind in your own teams going forward. Bear in mind that there is a second wildcard going into the game week. So game week 8 is looking like a good time to wildcard, but any later than that, you're really starting to miss out on that value that you could be getting from that wildcard. That's it for us from this video from the Young Millionaires Bible. My name's been Len. I really hope that you appreciate the content that I've been putting out there. There's lots of effort being put on behind the scenes, and there's plenty more to be coming. Keep your eye on this channel. This channel is going to explode, guys. And I'd love for you guys to be a part of it. Please leave a like, leave a comment below. We address every single one. And thank you so much to everybody who's been giving the support over the last couple of days from which this channel has been created. It has been great to see. And I really hope to be creating some more videos for you guys going forward in future. Good luck for game week 5. Make sure that you make the right transfers and don't sell Salah. Keep at it, boys.